Gary, do you remember the first comic book you ever bought?
In Coronado, California, where I grew up, there was a farm. There were several pharmacies in town, but the one that was closest to my house, walking distance to my house, was Corin's Pharmacy, Corrin apostrophe S. And Mr. Corin was the pharmacist there. On the end of the store, when uh, all the stuff was put on a big giant wooden display set of shelves at the end of the store where his entrance was. And at the exact opposite end of the store, at the back of the store, he sat at his cash register and desk. Um, and there were a couple of places where he couldn't see the lower part of the periodicals rack. So I would sneak in as a little kid, starting about the age of 5. And I had been reading Superman and Batman family stuff next door. There was an older kid whose mom and dad let him buy comic books, and he had this stack of Superman, Batman family stuff, and I would read them and digest them, and sometimes just look at the pictures. Um, and so then I go to Core and Drugs. I noticed they had comic books, right? And so what I would do is I would crouch down lower than the top of the shelf so Mr. Corn couldn't see me and take a comic book down and sit cross-legged with the comic book open in my lap. And I would just read the comic book, obviously for free without paying for it, which is a no-no. And about half of the time he would catch me, right? And pretty soon he just knew I was there. Even if he couldn't see me, he would hear rustling or something, and he knew it was always me. And he would always say the following. I can hear it in my head to this day. Hey kid, I told you, either buy it or put it back. Hey kid, I told you before, either buy it or put it back. And that poor Mr. Corn, I'm sure he couldn't leave his back desk. He would have customers and stuff. And then one day, in the summer of my 7th year on Earth, I went in, and at the very top of this wooden unit that was literally 12 feet tall, huge, high ceilings, way up at the top, there was this thing I had never seen before in my life as a 7-year old. And it was this character running real fast in a red suit. Uh, and oddly enough, I never did quite understand it with motion picture film behind it. But so I actually took my dime, which I was going to spend on candy, and I bought a Showcase 4. It was the very first comic book I ever bought because of that cover. Even the word showcase being big like that is really kind of fascinating because if you think about those first 4 issues of Showcase with the big showcase word, or maybe 5, eventually they started toning that down. So there's something special about that particular book in my world, being a kid where I was in the history timeline. Uh, the fact that Julie Swartz was inventing a whole new line of comic book characters that was based in science fiction rather than magic or brute force. Um, it was just a revolutionary time to get pulled into the world of comic books. And from that point forward, I actually started buying them off the stands. You can read a description of the process in Overstreet Price Guide number 20. That moment in my life changed my life in several ways. One is I'm now buying comic books that I'm going to take home and read them. Secondly, I don't have to sneak in and out of Corn Drugstore to avail my passion. But the third thing is that it started opening up a lot of questions, puzzles, mental gymnastics for a little kid. One of my favorite is that I was on the front porch of our house with my little brother, and we had laying there on the ground with just literally on the concrete slab. We laid out Showcase 4, 8, 13, 14, and Flash 105.
Hmm. The
And
chronology.
right, that would have been like what 59ish. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting here talking to my brother. I go, look at all the issues we've missed. It jumps from 14 to 105. We have got a lot of searching to do. A lot. There's a whole lot of used bookstores we've got to go to, because in those days a used comic was like a nickel.
Yeah.
They bought yours for 2 cents and they sold you theirs for a nickel, and that was the length of our understanding of this media. Right? We have no idea it's different titles. And my father came out and sat with us for a while, and he started looking at the books. And finally, he opened up the Showcase 4 and the Flash 105, and he said, see here, Gary, there's this little box on the inside front cover that kind of tells you what's going on with this comic. Look, tells you the number and the year and the month and how often it comes out every year. And he says, and it tells you the title. And you'll notice that the title on the 105 says The Flash, and the title on the 4 says Showcase. And I am telling you, it was like a lightning bolt hit me. I was probably about 10 at the time. And I remember holding up the 4 and the 105 together in my hands.
Wow.
Dusting off the dirt that got on the back of them from the concrete slab, thinking to myself, I have a lot of comic books I've got to get. This is so much bigger than I am now. This is, oh my God. Uh, I got to get 104 Flash comics. Where are they? Say it
Do you
again.
still own it? The Showcase 4?
Yes, I do. That very copy.
Wow.
Did you write your name on it?
Yes, I did, because by the time I got into junior high school, we met other people who would swap and trade. The problem was they wouldn't give it back to you.
You never see it
So
again.
I can remember many times actually having to go over to my friend's house and demand my books back, that they wouldn't give them back after a year,
Now,
But
was
you learn eventually that you never, ever loan a comic book to another person unless you have a duplicate in less condition. It's okay to have a loaner, but not your keeper.
your Showcase 4 ever loaned out and you had to kind of get it back, or you always had that in your possession?
No, not that book. Never loaned out that book. Every collector goes through these eras of history, right? First, you're reading, and then you're buying a few inexpensive books to fill in holes. And then you step over the line to the world of fanatic, and you got to get them all. And let me tell you, if someone says you got to get all the Mystery in Spaces, you're thinking, that's doable. There's only a couple hundred issues. Well, when I told my brother I wanted to collect every detective, adventure, action, and more fun, he about fainted dead on the floor. I mean, you got to understand, we'd only seen 10, 11 of these books in our lives. And when you think about the fact that when we started collecting detective, it was up to like 398 or something.
Yeah.
If someone tells you that you're going to have to find 398 issues, many of which go back before Superman, you're kind of going, this isn't going to be as easy as we thought. So that's what we worked on for 45 years of our lives, was completing every single DC up to January 1980.